Hello, this is Dr. Alexander Haskell. I'd like to discuss one of the most efficient and rapid ways to recover health on the principles of detoxification, purification. And this has to do with water and juice fasting, which I'll get into more detail about in just a moment. So what are the benefits? How does it work on the cellular level? Is it for weight loss? And again, working on the level of individual cell detoxification. So remember from maybe another video that you watched about the idea of the bowl representing the body or the cell, and that how we become intoxicated from various insults, chemicals, herbicides, different types of infections, synthetic drugs, pharmaceuticals, and the inability to get rid of our own cellular metabolic waste. So a little personal story about fasting for me. I was raised in the country on a cattle ranch, and back in those days there was a lot of spraying, a lot of chemicals, and we also have to use chemicals on the cattle. And that was an era also of the spraying of DDT to kill mosquitoes and insects, etc. And of course, I think it's still done these days. The crop dusters would fly over the house or across fields and killing herbicides and pesticides, killing herbs and insects. But then I came across, I was probably the age of about 22, 23, I came across this book called The Miracle of Fasting. I read it and was inspired to give it a try. So water only. First day, of course, was difficult to break habits of the kitchen, and was feeling pretty tired, had a good night's sleep. And then the next day I felt much more alert, my eyes were more clear, I felt more mental clarity, the desire for food had subsided. My third day I was feeling really, really good the third day, and a friend called me and said, maybe downtown. So I got the freeway, and about 15 minutes down the freeway I had this overwhelming sense of nausea, which I had to pull off the side of the road and really vomited my guts out. But then when that was finished, this beautiful, like the colors were vivid. I felt amazing. So I met my friend, I walked into the hotel lobby, and he looked at me and said, "What happened?" I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Your eyes, your aura, everything is so bright." And to me it was a really rewarding experience, because I realized that I was really getting a lot of the body's burden of those chemicals that had been stored in my system for years. So it was a very, very positive experience for me. So again, just a reminder about the bowl, the cell, etc., being full of toxins, and we must detoxify at the cellular level. So remember about individual cells. Every cell has toxins in them. Mostly fat cells, but in general a lot of toxins in various cells of the body. And the idea here is we want to get the toxins outside of the cell. And this is again an active transport, which means we have to increase the mitochondrial function. Mitochondria make energy, ATP, and only in that way, by increased ATP production, can we actively transport these toxins outside of the cell. And so the question then is how to increase mitochondrial function. So the cell mitochondria need oxygen, it needs thyroid hormones, and it needs glucose. So what is going on when we don't eat and we just drink water? So the glucose that we receive from our food, which is nourishing our mitochondria, providing glucose substrate to increase ATP production, is primarily from carbohydrates, but there's other foods as well which we convert into glucose. Dairy has lactose in it. Root vegetables have a high concentration of carbohydrates. Fruits as well have fructose complex with glucose. And then proteins and fats, and these will eventually turn into glucose it's a longer process to the liver, but it does happen. But above the ground vegetables do not have any carbohydrates. They're simply minerals that our bodies need, but there's no carbohydrates in vegetables. Therefore, we cannot convert above the ground vegetables into glucose. So then if we make a green juice, we're simply providing fluid and minerals and no carbohydrates. So what happens if we were on a above the ground vegetable juice fast or water fast? If we don't get glucose in our body, you would think we go into a coma. You know, like when a diabetic injects too much insulin, their blood sugar drops all the way down to baseline, much further than that, and they go into a coma. So how does the body deal with not having the food it requires to make glucose? So what happens is the sympathetic nervous system, the part of the autonomic nervous system, goes into a fight or flight mode because of our glucose dropping. And it calls upon the adrenals to secrete cortisol, an adrenal hormone. And cortisol has many, many important attributes or functions in the body. And cortisol has been given sort of a bad rep because of people thinking that high cortisol is an issue, and it is, but I'm talking about in a balanced situation. You've decided to do the fast, and you're prepared, so to speak, psychologically to go through a day or two of fatigue as the body finds its balance. So the cortisol has an effect upon the liver, and the cortisol has an effect upon adipose fat cells. For the liver, it releases glycogen, which can be turned into glucose, and it can also release free fatty acids from adipose tissue. This is the effect of cortisol being stimulated by the fight or flight mechanism of the sympathetic nervous system. So glycogen is like a high octane fuel. As a replacement for glucose, so to speak, and the same is true for free fatty acids. So these two things really turn on the mitochondria to produce ATP for the detoxification of internalized residues and toxins. So again, we're detoxing at the cellular level and emptying the bowl, so to speak, and those are toxins coming out. So when these toxins are released from inside the cell, what happens to them? The fluid surrounding our cells is lymphatic fluid, and it's a closed system of this fluid, of the vessels, and most people's lymphatic system is not moving. It's very, very stagnant. And if the lymphatic fluid is not moving and you're releasing all these toxins from cells, and toxins are still remaining outside the cells, they will eventually be reabsorbed back into the cell again. So we've got to move the lymphatic fluid, and there's ways of doing that. So movement, like exercise or movement, walking, etc., will help lymphatic movement or lymphatic fluid movement. Saunas, alternating with cold showers, another way to stimulate lymph to move fluid. And then lymphatic hydrotherapy, which is what we provide at our facility. So these toxins in the lymphatic fluid, they drain into the blood circulation, into the vessels. And from here, these toxins must be removed from the blood by the kidneys and by the liver and gallbladder. So we must support kidney function and support liver health, liver drainage, etc. So below the liver, you'll see in green the gallbladder. This is like the trash can of liver, and that's where the toxins would accumulate. And then from the gallbladder, they would come down this duct, this common bile duct, and empty into the intestines, and travel 25 to 30 feet through the intestinal tract. So when I was fasting, because of nausea, my body, my innate wisdom inside me said, let's get these toxins out of the body as quickly as possible going through the stomach and out the esophagus to be vomited out, rather than those being transported all the way through the whole intestinal tract and then being reabsorbed back into the body again. So it's really, really important that during a water fast or juice fast, that all these pathways of detoxification are working very well, especially I would say the colon, because it's so easy to reabsorb these toxins back into the body, and they keep recirculating around and around and never completely are able to detoxify. So a few ways to get the colon to move. One is colon hydrotherapy, which we provide, and also you can do coffee enemas to help toxins being released more rapidly through the stool. That's what I just explained about the gallbladder, and then the quickest exit being to vomit. And that's a question I'm often asked: how long should I fast? And I say usually if you get to the point of feeling nauseous, and if at all possible to vomit, that would be how long you want to do a water or juice fast. What about water fasting or juice fasting for weight loss? It's probably really an excellent way of losing weight, because a lot of these toxins are stored in fat cells, adipose tissue. But some people get in trouble with this because those pathways are not working all that efficiently. They can feel really, really bad for several days: headaches, fatigue, achy joints, etc. It's not a pleasant experience to go through if these toxins just being recycled back and from the around the body. So certainly it would be helpful for weight loss, but I think in conjunction with an overall program of purification, detoxification. So again, fat cells, adipose tissue, and you'll notice here there's only a couple of those little mitochondria. So fat cells, adipose cells only have 2 or 3 mitochondria, while most other cells have hundreds of mitochondria. Some tissues like brain, heart, and liver have thousands of mitochondria in a single cell. So this is one of the reasons why it's so hard to lose weight, is because of so few mitochondria in these fat cells, and the fat cells being the primary storage site for sequestering toxins out of the bloodstream and into cells to primarily protect the brain and reproductive system for people. So it is challenging sometimes to get the mitochondria in fat cells to be activated to then have the fat cell release the toxins, the stored toxins. So again, primary storage site of toxins, only 2 to 3 mitochondria. A person feels worse without open pathways of detoxification. So are there reasons not to do a juice fast? Yes. So anyone with blood sugar dysregulation, like diabetes type 1 and type 2, should not be doing this type of cleansing. Adrenal issues, the severe one, like Addison's, for sure not, but most people do fine with fasting and having even adrenal fatigue. They just have to take the time. They can't be expected to maintain their job, etc., while they're doing a cleanse. Thyroid issues, unusual thyrotoxicosis and Graves, have to be really, really careful with that. I don't suggest you do it on your own. And a person taking several prescriptions, especially if they're still taking their prescriptions during the water fast. And I caution you, do not stop taking your prescriptions if you want to do the water fast. There's other precautions as well, but those are the major ones. So that's it on the topic. I hope that maybe you can do some more personal education, purchasing that book. That there's many books on the market about water and juice fasting. So maybe hopefully I've inspired you to take this path. And this, fasting has been used for centuries by clinicians, physicians, lay people, and people who just want to improve their health. So I hope that would give you some things to think about. All right, thank you. Bye-bye.